Welcome everybody to Firehouse Talks with Jersey Rick, igniting leadership excellence. This is episode number 15. Is there a mystery to building a team? I'm Rick, and this is my able co-host Emily.
Hello.
How's everybody doing today?
Well, we just want to thank our listeners for tuning in. And today we are asking the question, is there a mystery to building a team? So let's just jump right on in.
Sometimes I think people do believe that there's a mystery to building a team, but I don't believe there is. Teamwork is vital to accomplish the mission in any organization, regardless of what type of organization, whether it's in the military, the fire service, the police department, EMS, a church, any place that has a team, there's got to be teamwork. But it's not a mystery. Some people turn it into a mystery, but as we're going to find out here, Emily, as we talk through this today, how we can demystify it, but why it is a mystery for some.
Hmm. So, in your experience, what makes a successful team?
This is the first part of demystifying it. It's the leader, it's the person at the top. And often, if there's problems within the team, if the teamwork is not working, yeah, it has everything to do with the leader. Last year, I was watching a program on television about the Navy SEALs training, BUDS, Basic Underwater Demolition course, and they were showing the different boat teams. And one team was not doing well at all. And it all revolved around the leader of that team. And the instructors decided to switch out that leader with the leader of the highest performing boat. Interesting thing happened. The switch out, the bad performing team, they became the highest performing team. That
Hmm.
high performing team, they became the lowest performing team. So it's the leader. It's the leader who impacts that team growth. Just listening to Darren Hardy on Darren's Daily this morning, and he was talking about some of the basketball coaches that are out there and some of their philosophies and what made them successful, what made their teams successful. And yes, there's the players on there, but it's the person at the helm, it's the person at the top of that pyramid, that hierarchy, that team leader that makes the good team and that ability to be able to draw people together.
So, let's talk about those characters. It's integrity, honesty, authenticity, and keeping your word can also be described as the character of a leader, correct?
Absolutely. It's the character of the leader. And I've worked for people who their character was less than desirable and it impacts everybody. And on the other hand, I've worked for people who had impeccable character. They had integrity. They were honest. They demonstrated authenticity. They showed a genuine interest in the team members. They communicated with the team. We talked about killing the ego here in our last
Yeah.
episode about mentoring. They killed their ego. They are humble enough. They had the courage to solicit genuine feedback from the team. They are the ones who say, I have an open door policy, and they actually live it.
Yeah.
It's not just blowing smoke up people's rear ends. They listen to what the team members are saying. They keep their word. They demonstrate tactical competency. Team members respect each other, and there's unity within that team. The story that I heard about basketball went back to the USA team for the Olympics. And the coach told him, he said, you're playing for the US because you are an American. And there's a story too from the 1980 Olympics with ice hockey. There's a movie out there, which right now it slips me. But the coach told them, who are you playing for at the beginning? And they all listed their college name.
Hmm.
And then eventually he got them to say, we're playing for the United States of America. It was the leader.
Yeah.
That leader was able to mold them into a successful team because they understood who they were playing for.
So that all sounds great, but what happens when the team leader does not have an interest in the team members and doesn't communicate with them.
It falls apart.
Mm.
It falls apart and the stronger personalities take over. And I'm thinking of a particular situation that I saw occur several years ago where the leader of the shift wasn't the leader, and the stronger personalities on the shift were taking over. And now you have something that's upside down. It's flipped the wrong way. And you see a lack of trust that erupts, and there's no
Yeah.
respect. There's corrosion within the team. And it's not good. It's not good at all. And there may, in situations like that, and in this particular situation, have to be an outside force that intervenes to get that turned around and correct it.
Yeah. So it seems to me that a team leader who has a big ego and is full of pride is the type of person who will not solicit feedback, nor will that person listen to what is being said.
Absolutely. Somebody who's got that pride, they're not going to listen to anybody else. I read a book once, with simple title called Leadership, written by a gentleman named Al McMichaels. He had been he had been the sergeant major of the Marine Corps, and he had a great statement in there, and that was the first sign of stupidity is when you think you know so much that nobody can tell you anything.
Mm.
I'm going to repeat that. Al McMichaels said, the first sign of stupidity is when you think you know so much that nobody can tell you anything. That's the person who won't listen to feedback. That's the person who always thinks that they are right. You can't tell me anything. And I just lay this out here, right here with this ego thing. Is recently we saw the assassination attempt on President Trump, and then I saw a reporter questioning the so-called leader of the Secret Service, and she was bantering around the word integrity and not accepting responsibility and so forth like that. Hey, that's well, there's probably many other forms of stupidity with that particular individual as well, but you can't tell them anything. No, I am here. This is me. I am the boss. You listen to me. Period.
Yeah. So, how does technical and tactical competency fit into the picture?
You have to have people who are technically and tactically competent. And I'll explain both of those. Technically competent means that you know your job, you know the equipment, whatever equipment it is that's assigned to the job. If you're working in an office and your equipment is the computer, you understand the programs that you are operating. You may not understand the ins and outs of how the computer operates, but you certainly are technically competent about the software that you are using. For police officers, they carry weapons, they carry the tasers. They're technically competent in using those tools to carry out their job. For us in the fire service, all kinds of tools, hand tools, saws, portable pumps, the driver operators, operating these big pieces of fire apparatus, whether it was the pumpers, their ability to pump with the equipment, or the tower, the 105-foot tower our department had. Someone who's technically competent knows how to operate that stuff. The drivers know how to get that rig from the firehouse to the scene of an emergency safely. Those are examples of technical competence. Tactical competency now is carrying out that job, carrying out the work, engaging in the work. For us as firefighters, we practice strategy and tactics. Strategy is the overall goal of what we wanted to accomplish. For example, responding to a two-story residential structure fire. If the fire is on the second floor in a bedroom, and we broke up the building, the front is the Alpha side, then you have the Bravo Charlie Delta side. If the fire is in the back corner on that Bravo Charlie side, the overall strategy would be to confine the fire to the room of origin. Now the tactics becomes how we are carrying that job out. How are we accomplishing that mission? Those are tactics. And that's what overall I mean when we're talking about technical and tactical competency.
Yeah, that
That,
makes sense. So we live in a day of age where selfishness is
mhm.
very prevalent in our society. So how does that impact respect for team members and team unity?
It has a big impact on it. When there's a team member who is selfish, it erodes team unity
Yeah.
and it erodes respect for team members. And as you were asking me this question, I thought back just quickly over the years to certain sports figures that became the so-called stars on their teams, but not the good so-called star that had the character. I'm talking about the ones that were always in trouble. They were in trouble with the law. They were in trouble because of debt, and it was all revolved around character issues. So the these people right here, they erode the team, and the team members start to turn against them. Think about one individual in particular. His name was Richie Allen. He played third base for the Phillies, and he was one of those guys that was not well liked. He drew attention to himself in a negative manner. And yeah, granted, it was Philadelphia. So every time this guy took the field, this entire stadium erupted in boos.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because of this guy
Did he
right
ever really
here.
shove?
Yeah, yes, yeah, yeah, and so there's so many examples of that in sports, and it breaks down that team unity. And going back to the 1980 USA Olympic hockey team, that's what, and I wish I could remember the name of the coach. And folks, I apologize for not remembering his name. I watched when the USA hockey team beat the Russians in the Olympic game. It was a great thing for our nation. It was an absolutely great thing. But the coach was able to break down those individual people to mold them into a team. The ones who were cocky and arrogant, it's like, okay, hey, this is it. You're going to play for the team, or you're simply going to go away.
Hmm.
So selfishness, yes, Emily, you're absolutely correct in your question. It is very, very prevalent in our society today, and unfortunately, I hear that from a lot of people. Even in the fire service, they share with me is how selfish, a lot of our firefighters have become, and that has a negative impact on the team, and it tears apart team unity.
Yeah, it's become a very much what am I gonna get out of it type
Yes.
world now.
Yeah, yeah. Uh,
What's in it for me?
yeah, absolutely. What is in it for me? And spending all those years in the military, 9 years in the military, and then 37 years in the fire service, service-oriented professions. And my family, has that background as well, service-oriented professions, or in case of my dad when he was alive, serving in the church that we grew up in New Jersey. And selfless acts that I saw my dad do. And he had also been in the Coast Guard, and my brother Ron was in the Coast Guard as well. Selfless acts of service that were performed out there. But you're right, and so much anymore. It's like, so what's in it for me?
Yeah.
Yeah, what am I going to get out of this? How can you help that other person?
Yeah, absolutely. So something else that can be difficult is what about the different personalities within the team and the variety of skills and talents each member brings to the table? Like, how does the team leader work with this? Because this can get pretty complex.
It does. It does get very complex, and the team leader must recognize that every member of the team is bringing something different.
Yeah.
They're bringing different experiences. They're certainly bringing different personalities, backgrounds, how they were raised, the circumstances of how they were raised. All these things come into play. What was their training? What was their education? And so the skilled team leader can recognize that and look at the team and say, where does this person fit best? Or, you know, there's a Jim Collins who wrote the book Good to Great, talks about getting the right people on the right bus, going the right direction. Well, that's all well and fine, but in the government world that I worked on is you don't have those type of choices.
To find the right people.
Well, yeah, define the right people. And, our goal was to hire the right people. But beyond that, it's like, getting the right people on the right bus is when we had new firefighters come on board, we would sit down, we being the battalion chiefs and the operations chief, we would sit down and we would look at it. And yeah, it wasn't a situation where, hey, it's a draft pick here. Not like the NFL, who's the number one draft pick? Yeah, we would joke around and kid about that, but no, it was like, okay, we had one year we had 14 people in the academy, and you know how they got assigned to A, B, and C shift?
How?
Alphabetically.
Mm.
This one A shift, B shift, C shift, A shift, B shift, C shift. That way, right there. And so yeah, it's great in a maybe nonprofit world or a corporate world with what Collins is saying about getting the right people on the bus. Is I most of the time we don't have any choice.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, here it is, and you get this person, and now you have to work with them, work with their personalities. And maybe the person that went to C shift had a better skill level than the person that I got on B shift. Now it's incumbent upon me to ensure that the company officers are training that person to bring up their skill levels. So that's just one example of how the leader works with these individuals in their team to mold them and to shape them. And also, from the standpoint of the fire service or any other organization too, is like, what's the culture? What is the culture of the group? What's the culture, of the team? And how does a team fit? And how does the people? I was a battalion chief of all three shifts at one point or another: A shift, B shift, and C shift. Yeah, and it was my job as the battalion chief not only to make sure that everybody went home safely and they didn't go home in a body bag or wind up in the hospital, with a serious career-ending injury. But as the team leader, it was my job to mold and shape them, but still within the umbrella of the fire department's mission and goals as well, aligned, in other words.
That kind of ties into this quote from Rudyard Kipling. He says, "For the strength of the pack is the wolf, and the strength of the wolf is the pack."
Absolutely. And you watch that, and there's plenty of videos or pictures that are out there on the internet about wolves, and you see them running with a pack. And in any pack and in any team, there's going to be some people who are stronger than others. But what should the stronger team member be doing?
Oh, you're asking me.
Yes, I'm asking you.
Leading the pack.
Well, not necessarily leading the pack, but helping out the weaker team, not carrying them, because there's weaker team members out there. All of a sudden, they expect the stronger team members to carry them.
Yeah.
No, but coming alongside,
almost
like
being the mentor.
Yes, like we talked about that word, that Greek word parakleo, summoning them alongside and building them up. And I've seen this play out in the fire service so often, where ladders is one. Those of us who, were not the taller members of the fire department could struggle sometimes with the bigger extension ladders. But then you have someone come alongside of you and say, let me show you a technique that will work for you. That's coming alongside, and that's not carrying them. That's not saying, hey, forget it, I'll always take care of the ladders. No, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Doesn't work that way at all. So I have a book by two gentlemen called, their names, Frank Bafasto and Carl Larson, and their book is called Teamwork: What Must Go Right, What Can Go Wrong. They identified 8 characteristics of high-performing teams. Number 1, a clear, elevating goal. Yeah, going back to fire, our goal was to protect life and property. But what's the goal of your organization? You may not be in emergency services. You may be in some other type of environment. You may be listening to this and you could be a pastor or an associate pastor of a church. So we know there, that the goal is to reach others for Christ. The second thing that those guys identified is a results driven structure. Structure, structure. There's a lot of organizations out there that they have no structure and they're just running willy-nilly all over the place and they can't figure out why nothing's getting done.
Yeah.
The third one, and we've talked about this already, is competent team members. Competent team members. You gotta have that. Number four, a unified commitment. Now, we talked about commitment when we did the episode on mentoring.
Mm-hmm.
The next one are standards of excellence, not standards of mediocrity, but standards of excellence. We want to perform to high levels, and we are not going to accept average. The next one that they identified is external support and recognition. Now, in a future podcast, we're going to talk about the recognition aspect of it, but external support. What kind of support is the team getting? And then finally, what they listed is principled, hey, listen to this, folks, principled leadership, not the type of, and I don't even want to call it leadership, not the type of nonsense that we see taking place in our country all across the board from the political level, from the local all the way up to the White House. Principled leadership means that you're not thinking about yourself. So, if you want to see all of these things that we just talk about, hey, watch a NASCAR race. There's plenty of them on TV, and wait until the car makes a pit stop and watch the pit crew come out and how they service that vehicle. I mean, it is very well orchestrated and it is quick. Everybody's got a job, a specific job. Four tires on that thing, four people changing the four tires. Somebody's putting fuel in the tank. They're cleaning the windshield off. Now, the guy cleaning the windshield, is he any less important than the guy who's putting fuel in the tank? No. It's all a team effort to get that car back on the track and to keep the driver safe.
That's a great example of teamwork, but can you tell us one specifically about firefighting, and did you build any teams
Yeah,
specifically?
I did. I took over our hazardous materials team from the individual who founded it. And so that's like, okay,
Big
what,
shoes to fill.
yeah, how can this go? How well will this happen? Did I face some resistance? Yes, I did. I did face resistance when we were part of a group at the time. It was called the Northern Colorado Fire Consortium, and we had a hazmat group in there. And that group consisted of the hazmat teams, Loveland Fire, Greeley Fire, Cruder Fire Authority, Longmont Fire, and then the Boulder County hazmat team. And we evaluated the hazardous materials technicians curriculum that were available throughout the country. And we settled on one from California, from the California Specialized Training Institute, and one particular instructor who's still out there. And I still work for the guy too, Brian Hines, chemical safety training. And did I get pushback? I got pushback from some of the members on the team because everybody had gone to a different hazmat technician curriculum. And our goal from the consortium was to get everybody on the same page so that when we worked together on a mutual aid incident, we didn't have to take 10 minutes to figure out, well, what level of training did you have? That becomes part of the team. And working in mutual aid, we all became part of one team to accomplish the goal of mitigating this particular hazmat incident, whatever it was that we were facing. This is where earlier he talked about support from the outside in that book, Teamwork, What Must Go Right, What Can Go Wrong. I had the support of the fire chief. He was familiar with that CSTI curriculum. He had been chief officer. Well, he started his fire service career in Santa Barbara County, California, worked his way up to division chief, and ultimately he had become a fire chief in the city of Orange, California, then over in Reno, Nevada, and Hayward, California, before he came here to Lovell. He was not only very familiar with that curriculum, he was also instrumental in getting Brian's father, Dietrich, involved in the chemistry aspect of it. When Chief Miner went to Dietrich Hines and said, "Hey, can you put together a chemistry course for our firefighters?" And it grew. And, and so I had that external support from the fire chief who recognized the importance of that program and said yes. And then, of course, when I got promoted to battalion chief, I started out on B shift. Then, after a few years, I was moved over to A shift. And then, after a little bit, I became the training chief, went back to A shift, and then I took over C shift. So, those teams. And then also, I had the wildland firefighting program and other programs as well. So all these different teams. So yes, I did have that experience building teams.
So when did teamwork work?
Teamwork worked when everybody understood what the mission was, and when everybody understood what their role was in the team.
Yeah.
Granted, and I'll go back to hazmat. We had various functions within hazmat, and somebody could be the entry team leader, someone could be the decon team leader, someone could take care of the technical reference aspect, and I'll just keep it at those three. Within the entry team, we would have 4 people assigned who are going to put on the suits and make entry. Within the decon team, we'd have anybody from 3 to 5 people that were going to decontaminate those folks, and then 1 to 2 people doing the technical reference. Next incident, you could get changed up. Somebody else could be the group supervisor. Somebody else would be in tech ref. Somebody else would be entry or the entry team leader. But the people understood what their roles were. They would understand what the responsibility of those roles were, and they were all trained the same, trained under the same curriculum. So everybody knew what the next person's job was. So it wasn't like, well, wait a minute, I can't do this. And I've never been trained to be the entry team leader. It's like, well, yes, you have, because we've provided the training. So that's one example of when teamwork worked.
Yeah.
Another example of when teamwork worked is you got to put to bed the negative garbage that comes out. When I took over A shift, they were all running around saying, that they were on the island of misfits. That's what they were calling themselves, the island of misfits. And there's a number of reasons why they were calling themselves that. My very first shift with them, I let everybody know I don't command misfits. You're all firefighters. Most of you have been here a while. You're competent firefighters. You know the aspects of the job. So right here, right now, this garbage of the island of misfits ends, because I am not going to command misfits. And Emily, I never again heard them refer to themselves like that.
Wow.
The leader has a responsibility to let people know that they are valued.
They're important.
Yep,
Yeah.
they're important.
Yep.
They are valued. And when the team leader doesn't value the people, they know it, and teamwork won't work.
So on that topic, give us an example where teamwork was absent.
This one was a mess. And it was during a period of time here in our fire department when the structure, for lack of any other terms, folks, was just jacked up. It was jacked up. And the scenes of emergencies were jacked up. And I was a lieutenant, and it was January. It was cold. It was early in the morning. Ice and snow packed roads. We got dispatched to a residential structure fire. And when we were driving south on the street, it's like, yeah, yep, caller is right. This house is on fire. You could see it. We saw it from about 6 blocks out. We were the first engine company on scene, stretch a line to start fighting the fire. And then the chaos happened when all the chiefs started showing up. Now, understand, I'm going to reiterate, this was a period of time when our organizational structure and our fire department was messed up. And it played out on that scene that night. I don't know how many times I received conflicting orders from a different chief officer.
Wow.
There was no unity out there. There was no one person that was in command of that fire, although one person who said they were in command, they weren't. And I mean, it was just that was an absolute mess. There was no teamwork. Everybody out there was functioning differently. And the outcome was bad. Let's put it that way. It was not successful.
Wow. So that's an example of where teamwork was absent. So let's go back to a positive note.
Yes.
John Woodland was the coach of UCLA's Bruins basketball team. And within a 12-year period, he won 10 NCAA championships.
Mhm.
That's pretty good. I mean, I
Yeah,
think. I mean, I don't know anything about sports, so but I think what we can take from this is that did not happen without teamwork.
that's right. And yeah, John Wooden, he was the coach of UCLA basketball, and his team members, they loved that guy.
Mm,
They loved him. And one of the reasons why they loved him is John Wooden wasn't playing the race card with anybody. It didn't matter whether it was a black player or a white player. He treated everybody the same.
mm,
And the players recognized that. And they loved him for it. And especially in a time here in our nation when there was racial strife taking place around the country and on the streets, racial riots. Now, John Wooden didn't have any part of that. He was treating each player as a human being, as a member of the team. And that's one of the reasons why he was so successful. Now, I've
yeah.
got a book here called Wooden on Leadership by John Wooden and Steve Jameson. They identified 4 rules to lead that impact teamwork. Number one, the star of the team is the team.
Mm,
It's not just one person, it's the whole team. Number two, insist that members of your team share the ball, information, ideas, and more. Meaning it's not just one team member out there on the court who's hogging all the glory. And you see this in organizations, the fair haired golden children that
mhm.
are out there.
Yep.
Yeah, they hog the glory. They always got the ball. They're always getting the recognition. Well, that just creates hate and discontent and strife. The third
Absolutely.
thing that they mentioned is go out of your way to praise those quiet performers who make things happen.
Mm,
You know, the people in the background. We see this all the time in church settings, the people who get things done. You come into an activity and the chairs are all set up. Well, our church, the chairs get set up on Saturday, they get torn down on Sunday because it's in a gymnasium. Now, there's a lot of people that are doing both, setting them up, taking them down. Those are the quiet workers behind. They're the ones that aren't getting recognized. And then the fourth thing that was identified in that book is seek players who will make the best team rather than the best players.
ooh,
I I wholeheartedly believe that somebody would come to us and you can't train character.
no.
Yeah, you could train competence. I would rather have somebody on my shift who was weak in a skill who had strong character
Yep.
because we could take that firefighter or that driver operator or that company officer and we could work with them and we could help them, teach them, build them up because they had strong character. I've
Yeah.
seen people who had strong skills, strong abilities, but they did not have character. I didn't want them. I didn't want that. And frankly, I had people on my shifts, all 3 of my shifts, the others in the department would look at as like, hey, they're troublemakers. Yeah, well, usually there's a reason why somebody's a troublemaker.
Yeah.
And that's not the topic of this particular podcast here, but perhaps we'll look at that later on in another podcast because I addressed that in my book, The Furnace of Leadership Development. Yeah, because hey, everybody who's always supposedly doing everything right, again, the fair-haired golden children, you know, look at some of the characters who have been in the Marine Corps over the years, and
Yeah.
that would be rejected by other people as being these so-called troublemakers, but they were
Mm,
top-notch Marines, able to go out and get the job done. So,
So as we wrap up this episode, is there anything else you'd like to add?
I don't think so. Emily, we've covered quite a bit in this, what, maybe half hour that we've been on here. So um, one thing I do want to say though about John Wooden, he said, give me 100%. You can't make up for poor effort today by giving 110% tomorrow. You don't have 110%. You only have 100%, and that's what I want from you right now. And that's pretty clear, pretty succinct. So there's no mystery to team building. It takes hard work, dedication, and commitment.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to add?
No, I think that's it.
Okie dokie, folks.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for tuning in and listening or watching. If you're looking at us on YouTube, if you found this to be useful, please like, subscribe, share, tell your friends about this. And I think maybe if you've listened all the way through this, you know that you don't have to be a firefighter to listen. Go to my website at fireofficerleadershipacademy.com. Learn more about what I can do to help you, help your team through coaching and mentoring and teaching the courses that I have to offer. And then also my blog that is free. Post that on my website on Mondays. It gets posted on my LinkedIn profile on Wednesdays. And for the firefighters who are watching, if you're a member of Facebook, I have a group called the Firefighters Leadership Network for current and retired firefighters, volunteer, paid, military, wildland, any type of firefighter. So, with that being said, thank you very much, and we will see you on the next episode. So
Bye.
long.